Episode 2, Bladeology, brought to you by LSD Incorporated, hosted by Nick Chuprin of NCC Knives,
Elijah Isham of Isham Blade Works,
and Jeremiah Burbank of PVK Vegas.
So on today's episode, we'll be interviewing Jeremiah from PVK Vegas on how he joined PVK Vegas and the story of how PVK Vegas started. So would you like to start off, Jeremiah, on when you joined the company or when the company started?
Roll it back to the time you began.
It was 2010. I started full-time with my brother. PVK is a family-owned business. Yeah, I've sort of been in and out of the company my whole life. Josh started the company originally in 1994 in our hometown in Massachusetts. Originally one storefront, a small storefront in our hometown, which I actually remember getting out of school and then walking downtown and using the phone to call our mom. Was my earliest memories of that store. And meeting all the guys that used to work there and kind of like hanging out behind the counter and actually poking at early production Spydercos. The civilian always stood out in my memory. And then eventually he, I just say we because it's the company, but eventually he expanded to another storefront in a local mall. So at a point there were 2 physical locations for PVK, which I get this email probably 5 times a day and DMs constantly, but PVK stands for Pioneer Valley, and then originally it was Pioneer Valley Knife and Tool. So we just kept the PVK over the years because that's, I don't know, we've been around so long, people just recognize that moniker, and it's the same company. Actually, we were right. We were just at the Kentucky show, and I ran into Peter Martin and Sean Kendrick, and I'd never gotten a chance to talk to them directly, but they recognized the name and admitted they used to, buy switchblades from us in the late 90s. So we just kind of kept it. We started in Western Mass. We actually moved to New Hampshire at a point because of the switchblade laws in New Hampshire. We had a storefront there for probably about a year before eventually making the jump to Vegas. We went out to USN. It was G6 or G5 was our first one. And it just seemed like the Wild West, like the frontier out there. And talking to people about knife laws, they were, very, very liberal knife laws out there. Switchblades had recently been legalized to carry and to sell and to manufacture. So it seemed like a good fit for the business. That sort of roughly brings us to where we are now in PVK Vegas. So again, we just kept the PVK and added on Vegas because that's where the business is. So it's easy for people to recognize sort of where we are located currently.
And you guys specialize in Balisong's automatics, pretty much anything that doesn't lock or locks with a spring. Yeah,
so that's always kind of been Josh's niche is stuff that nobody else wanted to deal with. Sort of throughout the years. Actually, switchblades and balisongs used to be huge in the late 90s, early 2000s. That was sort of custom knives and production stuff. That was like the bee's knees. We've been doing business with Microtech for, I don't know, since we started.
Microtech is like your kind of bread and butter. You are the largest dealer of Microtech?
Yeah, that's right. So Josh and Tony have known each other for a very long time, and they've been doing business together since, I don't know, 96, pretty much, since we moved on to the internet. And probably a little before then, actually, we had some mini UDTs in our old print catalogs, which some customers still have. I know I have got a couple in my collection, but I run into people every once in a while. We used to run like physical, I think once a month, every couple of months we would put out a print catalog, and we had Microtech in some of our very early ones. So yeah, we've definitely been selling Microtech for an extremely long time.
All the way back to the Vero Beach shop.
Absolutely, yeah. All the way back till then, when they were in Florida, yep. But yeah, so balisongs and automatics have always been sort of, we've never been the largest guys. I've always just been doing it the longest. And those 2 categories of knives are often the ones that are the most overlooked by makers and manufacturers. So it's sort of a niche that a lot of customers and clients and friends fall into. And it's always helped us to sort of focus, what are we buying? This is the stuff we're buying. We're buying the stuff that mostly gets overlooked. And it helps to keep the catalog trim, financially making investments in those two categories, have worked really well up until now, and that still continues to be, what we do. I mean, you guys see me at shows. I sort of have that conversation with everybody. I'm like, hey, have you thought about making these, or do you make these, or that kind of thing.
A year where
try and convert everyone to the dark side of automatics and battle songs.
Yeah, a year of wearing me down, and now I'm here making battle songs.
Exactly.
Hey, you got me to design one, my first one ever, so that just happened.
So I mean, it works. See, there we go. It people are interested in it because it's also a challenge. It's a good challenge for makers or designers because it's something that they're not used to. It really it's an out of their comfort zone from the standard sort of frame lock or liner lock folder.
Yeah, boring. After me, I've been making frame locks for 6 years now, and full time 4. So it's just the same thing over and over again. Same question I get: what's your favorite part about being a knife maker? I love working for myself, but I also hate working for myself. Those are the ones that
Double-edged sword.
It over and over again.
Yeah, it's a good design exercise doing a bally or an automatic. Still have to tackle the automatic side, but yeah, so many frame lock and liner locks, it gets a little dull after a while.
Yeah, it's good to break out of the mold, especially if you've got a following. Yeah, like people want to see new and interesting designs and mechanisms and, your interpretation of the design or the mechanism.
And you guys are kind of the only people doing that right now, like kind of trying to stir up the whole soup and get people interested in battle songs and automatics again.
Yeah, I'm trying to have that conversation with as many people as I can, because it is an overlooked area of the market. Honestly, I'm sure as soon as this airs, it won't be that secret anymore. But
I think you're talking us up way too much up. It's only episode 2. We currently have no viewers.
Oh yeah, that's a solid point. Yeah.
We got to build this following.
Yeah,
one step at a time.
Yeah, we're on episode 1. So currently we're at 0 viewers, except the 3 of us and our parents.
There are customers and users out there for that segment of knives, and a lot of people ask me, like, oh, like, aren't bally songs like just for those kids, like on the forums or on the YouTubes? And it's honestly, bally songs, Benchmade made a huge market and following, based on an entirely different clientele than those kids. Those kids weren't around, when those knives were in the height of popularity. They appealed to a lot of guys who wanted to carry a one-handed opening tactical knife, in a sheath or outside a sheath.
In 20 years, the landscape has changed drastically.
Well, yeah, and also, there's not a bad thing if you're getting kids interested in a hobby through a bally song. Those kids are going to grow up and be really interested in this hobby in general, beyond bally songs. They'll eventually move to folders, fixed blades, whatever. You're introducing people to the hobby. So I've never understood why people are like, oh yeah, it was just for kids. That's terrible. Like, yeah, it's really growing our hobby is not what you want to do. Like, come on, guys, seriously.
Yeah, you should always come with open arms to the youngins. We got a lot of young followers, that are just going to grow up to be collectors and enthusiasts. So, yeah.
Sure. Let's get back to the story of PBK. Now, as I remember, you told me you guys have a really old presence in the forums, and you might have even created some of your own forums back in the day. Is that correct?
Yeah, so some of this is, passed on history from me because, I wasn't involved in the forums in the 90s when my brother was, but so we originally actually had a couple different sites, actually. So Josh started, which some customers might remember, which is Bladeology, which was actually a precursor to almost any used knife site on the internet right now. So Bladeology was...
Bladeology back in, when I first started, but it wasn't around for long at that point.
Yeah, so, you could send your knife in, or it was basically an eBay for knives. And that actually was born out of the early Blade forum days, where people were trying to hustle their knives in the used market and having trouble. The early Microholics forum is still live now. It's recently undergone some pretty serious changes and updates, and so it no longer shows the old history book or history timeline, but actually, so Josh did have a hand in starting Microholics forum back in the day and was credited until the revamping of the site. That's sort of the knife community likes to, that's what happens. But yeah, the forum days were very, very heated. When I was getting involved in 2010 was probably just the tail end of the craze of the forums. We had probably mostly Blade forums at that point. Jersey Devil, we were kind of on and off of. I tried to keep up with it a lot, but it was nuts. I mean, the forums are just like, it's an entirely different animal than anything we're used to on social media now. Like back in the day, like forums were the make it or break it kind of situation, for makers and for the community at large. Like if you had a bad rep or a good rep on the forums, that might, count or not count for a sale, or, having credit was a huge thing.
Was the USN around at that time?
The first days of USN, let me try to think. Yeah, USN was definitely around 2010.
Yeah, because I got into it a little late.
Yeah, when did USN start? I don't know.
I got in this in 2009, and USN was a thing then.
Yeah.
See, I've never been too keen on the forums myself, except for Blade forums, like for bushcraft and stuff. But yeah.
Well, the forums are like, on a response time, and like you have to have your little emojis, and you're part of your different groups, and your tags. I mean, it's
its own animal.
It really is.
But there was a big benefit to the forums, like you mentioned, reputability. That's how you knew, like, sell to this guy, do you not sell to this guy? And that's somewhat of an issue we're having now on Instagram, because things just fall out in the timeline. Once in a while, you'll see one guy says, oh, this guy's a scammer, he bought my knife, and a month later, he disputed the charges. And you see a bunch of guys that repost it, and you go, not to deal with this guy. But Instagrams is as easy as just making a new account, keep doing what you're doing, or if you keep the same account, things are going to die off in a month or so. People aren't going to go back in your timeline and see it. On the forum,
definitely. Yeah, I echo that.
That's not to deal with, and they'll vet the people, because, like, for example, USN. The reason I didn't get on it the first year is I didn't have a paid email until we ended up, our family started switching to like Optimum, and then we had a paid email. But you couldn't get on USN unless you had a paid email, so it wasn't that easy to make multiple accounts. If you got banned, you're pretty banned. It's not that easy to just get new paid emails every time.
Yeah, I remember trying to join USN. Yeah, I remember trying to join USN with a Gmail, and it wouldn't work. I definitely remember that.
Yep, that's exactly what turned me off of it. Trying to join with my Gmail and had the same problem. Couldn't join. Had to have a paid email. So I was like, I'll stick to Blade forums.
Yeah, I hated it back then, but think about it now. It was a good way to keep away the bad people of the forums. Once you got banned, it was not the easiest thing to get back on there.
No, that's
you don't just have paid email.
Yeah.
So back to the brick and mortar shop. So you guys moved to Vegas in 2016, right?
So we moved to Vegas officially end of 2014. We left New Hampshire end of 2014, and we moved to Vegas. Probably it took us. I mean, we did it very quickly, but we established the mail order in Vegas beginning of 2015. We opened the storefront probably February of 2017, because I know we just passed our. Wow, we're coming up on our 2-year, which is insane.
Yep. 2nd year anniversary.
That's completely nuts. Don't ever open a knife store. It's a garbage idea.
But I'm sure it's even more challenging opening one on the Vegas Strip.
Oh, yeah. Doing retail is like completely bonkers. We've been mail order for so long that it's like having like 2 teenage stepchildren running around. Like, they're both so much attention, and like if you look away for 2 seconds, one of them's on fire and the other one's leaving like the front door unlocked.
And mainlining acid.
Yeah, essentially. Yep. Brick and mortar on the Strip has been a blessing for the business, honestly. We were kind of at the point where it was like, okay, like we need to do something about this. We'd had a lot of private customers, a lot of high-end private customers visit the showroom at our previous location. We were doing mail order in 2015 and 16. We were just doing sort of head things. And then I had enough customers coming in to the sort of private showroom, and they were like, wow, like this is really awesome. Like I've never experienced anything like this. You guys should open up like a regular store. Like you guys should look for a place where you can do this like out in the open, like a regular knife shop in Las Vegas. A friend of ours, through a friend of ours, came across a retail space, which is where we are now, and was like, hey, you have 5 minutes to make a decision. Like, what do you think? And Josh was like, I think we should do this. I think it's this, or we kind of just stagnate. And I was like, all right, I mean, let's do it. Like, whatever, I got your back. You know, let's take this to the next level, and we'll know really soon if we shot ourselves in the foot or we're going to continue to grow. And
took a bit
so
of a
far, it's been really good.
And it paid off.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, at some point in business, you either have to expand or just like, I don't know. Yeah, you kind of stagnate, and that's kind of death in business.
You see how it happens. Like, I've been in the past 5 years, I've been through four major shop, unfortunately. Right. But I'm at the place now where I'm like 2,000 square feet. I'm only using a third of it. I have time to grow and expand here. I shouldn't be needing to move again.
Yeah, that's
you need me in there to take up some of that space.
Yeah, there you go.
Hopefully, Elijah can get here and take up some of this unused bits.
Get in there,
the day rate. The day rate. So how did you guys choose Vegas? What made you want to be in Vegas over everywhere else?
The USN show and the laws there.
Yeah, the USN kind of, that did it. Like, it felt different.
That sealed the deal.
Yeah, we got invited to go to that show by some industry friends, and they're like, "Hey, you got to come check this out." And like, this is something special, and I think you guys should be coming here to get knives. And at that point, we were sort of like on and off buying customs. I mean, obviously, we're buying Marfione customs, but we weren't sort of buying customs like we are now. And seeing that environment was really good, because neither Josh nor I had driven through Vegas years ago on multiple different road trips, but I'd never really stopped. Josh had never been to Vegas. He'd never really gotten a huge chance to travel. So I think when he saw the city and the possibilities, it was kind of like glitz, glamour, and the Wild West. And it was the perfect storm for us at the time, because we sort of needed it. It was the same thing in New Hampshire. We're like, all right, we're doing good. We need to continue doing something else. You know, we need the next step.
Yeah, quite the paradigm shift. Massachusetts to Vegas.
Yeah, I mean, really, you know, both of us, you know, grew up pretty much in the woods, you know, so, you know, Vegas is a different animal.
It's a great place to have a knife shop. It's unto itself.
You know, it's the center of all the Vegas shows now, which I'm more than happy to have. And it draws in a lot of customers, man. Like, I can't tell you. I mean, you guys kind of know because you've spent some time there, but if you've never been to the shop, I really encourage everybody to come down. If nothing, just to experience the weirdness. Like, the Las Vegas Strip, like after sunset till like 2 a.m, is very wild, and we get the range of customers which you would not believe. Anywhere from the highest of high rollers to just like an entire family of French people in on vacation, and they happen. Spectrum. Yeah, like really, like they walk in and they're like, oh, like I didn't know this was a thing. Like I need like a Victorinox like camper, and it was like, okay, like I got you. Or like, you know, like people you wouldn't even think to be knife guys, you know, given the opportunity, they're like, oh wait, actually, like I need a knife because it's the most simple of tools since like the dawn of man, and I didn't know that I could even have one, but now given the opportunity, like I gotta have one, or you know, I gotta upgrade to whatever the next cool thing is, you know, be it, you know, a Microtech or whatever. It's
probably the only knife shop you can buy a Mech Army flashlight and a Ron Best Phase 2.
Right, exactly. Yep.
Yeah, when you're there, you better ask to get into the back room. That's where all the cool customs are, and that's where you leave with a happy ending. And by happy ending, I mean a great deal.
The VIP.
Yeah. It's really funny how that space came together, and what it used to look like before. We probably spent we didn't sleep for like 3 days, and we just walked around in there with tarps over the front door, like drawing on the floor with Sharpies and like screaming at each other about like the best way to sort of plot that out. And if you've been to the shop, it makes a great deal of sense. But if you can imagine it was basically just one giant open space with no walls. And we ended up building walls and sort of fitting the space for our needs. And it worked out really well. It just took a great deal to get to that point. But yeah, having two separate rooms works.
Yeah, maybe convince Josh to let me interior design that up a bit. It's great now, but it could be better. It could be awesome.
You know, we're thinking about it. It's got to happen eventually, I guess.
Knife art everywhere.
He used to balance out the feng shui with Chuck's knife art.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, that's right. I got to get some of those from him. I definitely would love to have more of that back there.
He'll be on the show. He'll talk about his art.
Yeah, he showed us that at Nick's.
Anything else you'd like to touch on about PVK Vegas?
Let me think.
Future plans, where you're headed next?
Where we're headed next? Probably.
Put it to scale how big or how small you guys are, maybe how many employees you guys staff, or talk about your wonderful employees like Dakota and John Taco.
Yeah, right now we're running more employees than we've actually ever had before, which can be pretty intense, but it's great to have so many people in the shop. You know, it allows for multiple different projects to get done. And it's awesome because we've been able to pull from the community. One of our very cool employees, Cliff. Cliff was a Las Vegas resident who came down to the storefront, or actually before it was a storefront, just a private showroom. Cliff came down a bunch of times when he saw the post on Instagram, and I think one or two of them probably said Las Vegas or something. At that point, we were trying to keep it kind of secret, but Cliff called and was like, hey, like, can I just come down and like buy knives? And Josh was like, yeah, absolutely. So that was the first time I met Cliff, is the couple times he came down to the old spot. And then eventually we were just like, hey, like, you know a lot about knives and you're cool. Like, do you want to just like work here? So he's been great. He started out just doing weekends, and he's now I think up to like 3 or 4 days a week. Which is awesome. And we've got John and Dakota, who are also Vegas locals. Those are our standby guys.
Yeah, so if you ever stop by the showroom, you're most likely going to meet Dakota or John Taco, and they're both very memorable faces. You won't forget them once you meet them.
Group of great characters.
That's right. Yep, they're holding it down for everything that needs to be done. Social media, photographs, customization, flame treating titanium, lasering.
You're also very unique because you guys offer a lot of customization services, whether if you're ordering something with some requests, or so you guys have a whole section that's already dedicated to pre-done custom jobs you've done. If I'm correct, you guys do laser, flame treating, and engraving services, correct?
Yeah, about your laser services. Like, you can engrave pretty much anything, right?
Probably the first to start doing that as a dealer. There were certainly people doing it before, but as a dealer, I think we were the first people to start doing that, which is lots and lots of aftermarket work on knives. It started with one laser and an Ultratech, probably in 2016, I want to say.
Great title for something.
Actually, no, late 2015 we started with that's the title of my book, is a laser and an Ultratech. And it started with a Samurai that Josh did, a Samurai Ultratech with a spectral Hammond on a satin finished Tonto blade. And it just kind of spiraled from there. It moved to printing on knives, laser engraving on knives, and then also drag engraving on knives. And we offer all that in-house. If customers come in the store and they want something, we can pretty much do it on the spot. We can offer that on the website. If people have, birth dates or initials, we can do that on their knives. And we also do lots of in-house custom builds that we have available on the website, which is basically art we do in-house, fully custom. Handle, blade, hardware, colored, engraved, printed on, a mix of several different processes we've developed over the years with the lasers and all the other technology that we have to make the knives even cooler and more appealing than they already were, and to offer something special that nobody else does, which is part of the fun in developing those processes. It's setting ourselves apart from other dealers and sort of becoming an aftermarket shop in the process. It's wild, really.
A lot of custom work involved.
Oh yeah, hours and hours.
By the shop employees, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and just piles of things that didn't work.
Now, do you guys do custom requests? A lot of collectors are looking for something very specific. Like I know, for example, some of my knives, once they leave my shop, they're sometimes gone. Like, I've probably only seen 20% of knives I've made on Instagram or forums or something, but 80% just disappear. Like, if someone calls you up and says, I'm looking for this really rare Microtech from the late 90s, like, would you guys be able to find that for them?
Actually, that's the other 10 emails that I get every day. is I'm looking for this knife, and I'm willing to give you all the money in the world to find it. I don't care how long it takes or how much money. For the most part, we're not actually like mercenaries, like knife mercenaries. I'm not going to go out and try to find knives for people. If they're looking for something specific that I know I might come across, that's different. But for the most part, we do not hunt down vintage Microtech. We do come across a great deal of vintage Microtech. It will sell extremely quickly.
You were not a mercenary. You just dress like one. Maybe that's that's cause for confusion right there.
Chapter 2 in my book, Lasers and Ultratechs, is I do dress like a mercenary. However, I am not one. But yeah, no, people email me about that all the time. Like, hey, I'm looking for this knife. Can you find it? And no, not really. It doesn't. The time equated for me to find that, it doesn't make any sense.
Looking for the ever elusive Matt Cook battle song.
Yeah.
Not going to happen.
That for international clients and stuff like that, because they can't really contact the U.S. guys or deal with the shipping for it or go to any of these shows because 80% of the shows are in the U.S.
Oh, yeah. We deal with a huge amount of international orders. We've got customers that we've had for decades all over the world that we deal with and get knives to as somewhat of a specialty. We've definitely been contacted by other people and companies to facilitate getting stuff to their customers because we've been known to be able to do that. I actually just remembered, sort of going back to a question you had earlier, it's funny the amount of times that people will contact me to see if I would be interested to buy a knife, and it's a knife that either we made in-house, like one of our customs, or it's a knife that they purchased from us a great time ago, like a decade ago. I actually had a guy in the shop last summer who called me, who lived in Henderson, which is the town it's like 10 minutes away from Vegas. He called me. He's like, hey, I got a bunch of Dalton automatics. You want to buy them? And I was, of course, like, yeah, absolutely. Like, that's definitely one of my favorite automakers. So he comes into the shop, and he's just a very average-looking guy. He is a mechanical engineer, which I find is a surprising amount of people who are into automatics tend to be some sort of very mechanical person.
I was thinking just the knife community because, like, before I became a knife maker full time, I was in school for mechanical engineering. I was only a year and a half in, and I dropped out.
Right. Yeah. It's not an uncommon profession, I think, for people in our industry. But anyway, he's just a super friendly guy. Just looked very average. So he sits down. We have this Strider coffee table that we got at one of the USNs. So we sit down at the table, and that's usually like in the back room. That's where all the deals are made. So he's got a little bag with him, and he empties out his bag, and all the knives he has with him are in PVK pouches with our logo. And if you're unfamiliar, it's just a black, blue, and white, and it's just a knife opening. It's a switchblade just opening, and it's like sort of like a fan. But every knife he has is in one of these pouches, and I sort of start to laugh, and I don't say anything right away, but I'm like, wow, these pouches are really cool, dude. Like, where'd you get these? And he's like, oh, the company I bought these for, like, from like way back, that's their logo. And I'm like, oh, that's really neat. Like, I've totally seen that before. And he's like, really? And like, I sort of reach in my pocket and I toss him a card. And
the plot thickens.
Right. And then he's like, wait a minute. And I'm like, yeah, homie, like, that's us. And it's like, that happens a lot. And he's like, wait a minute, like, you guys, like, I bought these when you were in Massachusetts. And I'm like, well, we were there, but we're here now, and it's still us. And it was just sort of a very cool moment because it was sort of like full circle. Like, he bought those Daltons from us, I don't know, probably early 2000s. And now he's coming back to sell those Daltons back to me, whatever, almost 20 years later in a different state on the other side of the country. And I did end up buying the Daltons. They were in great condition, probably just as he bought them from us. And I definitely was not able to get all the pouches off of him. He sort of, at that point, very much wanted to keep the pouches, but I do have one of the pouches that I took from one of the Daltons.
The OG pouches?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Now, being on the Vegas trip, a lot, like you mentioned, a lot of shit might happen. Is there any, like, interesting stories, like, around them drunk people walking into the shop or something going on?
Give us some D's nuts stories.
Yeah, except the D's nuts guys coming all the time.
We want to hear about Welvin.
So, yeah, we get that a lot. Vegas brings out the characters. We've got lots of characters who live there. We've got lots of characters who visit. A standby character is Welvin, as his actual name is Welvin, but he might be better known on the internet as the D's Nuts guys. So Welvin is a good friend of the shop. He comes by I don't know, probably almost every weekend to say hi and sort of see what's going on, because he recognizes that it's kind of like a pretty cool place where the hip cats hang out. And so you'll definitely see Welvin pop up on the Instagram story or on the Instagram Live now and again. He's always looking for a lot of things. Sometimes he's looking for a taser. Sometimes he's looking for a cigarette. Sometimes he's just looking to hang out.
That's taser.
Yeah. What else do we get? We get some celebrities in there now and again. We've definitely tried to reach out to a lot of the local DJs. The DJ scene in Vegas is very strong.
But like you gotta store full of knives, and like I spent enough time at your shop and on the strip to see a bunch of drunk people walk by. But when you like super drunk people just wander into a store full of knives and like anything goes kind of bad or can go bad.
Yeah, so I mean we've definitely it is all sort of fun and games until it's time to break out the tasers. I was not there for it. I was actually at one of the shows with you guys, either in Portland or the New York show. It was pretty recently actually, but I did get it.
Had to be.
Yeah, brandished. there was a taser incident. We had I don't know if they were specifically just super drunk or just being, I'll just say obnoxious. But they grabbed something off the wall and they were sort of making a threat. And John actually just grabbed the taser.
Taser Taco to the rescue.
Yeah, he jumped out there and he just tased the guy right in the storefront. And I think it was pretty early. It was like 1 a.m. And I'm sure the person had some drinks, but was just being inorderly to the point where John felt it necessary for the safety of all involved to tase him and then call security. Not that anyone will ever hear, but Hawaiian security, we love you guys. You've always got our back. Giant Samoan dudes at the call whenever we need them.
Samoans at the ready.
Dude,
can't argue with that.
No joke. Like we get like homeless people walking by and like you just call them and they just answer and they just ask like, what store are you? And then they just come over and there's just two like giant shadows towering over these people, and then they're just gone. They're great. They're just gone like, all right, we got you. Like, no problem.
The Samoan shadow.
Yeah, the weekends get pretty crazy. It's fun though. I mean, you guys have seen it, and it's nice how we've sort of cultivated like a neat industry hangout spot. That was never really the intention, honestly, but it just happened. This past USN was sort of the epitome of that. I think we had like, I don't remember, a great deal. We had like Mark, Bill, Matt. We had all these makers in the shop. We had a bunch of customers in the shop. And it was nice to see everybody sort of hanging out, just sort of comfortable in a space, a space that everyone sort of felt was, part of what they do, hanging out, telling stories.
It's become the common ground for all that is knife. It's right at the epicenter, too. It's like real close. You're like a 5-minute walk away from the Planet Hollywood where the USN's at, so it's perfect.
Super close. A little farther away this year from TKI. It'll be over at Bally's, but I'm sure we'll still get some people at the shop.
Yeah, you have everyone from drunk knife makers to white sleeping Sasquatches.
Oh my God, it's crazy.
Speaking of TKI, I just bought my ticket.
Oh, nice. Yeah, you have to call this year.
I'll buy my ticket. I'll be there.
I actually called last year too. So
did you?
I think
Nick,
so.
are you gonna come?
I'm gonna be there because I'm gonna be somewhat exhibiting at the Vegas Classic, and I'll just be hanging around the SHOT Show. Trying to decide if I want to spend the $250 though on TKI.
Well, I mean, it's a great deal because you get a $35 VIP pass to the Vegas Classic show for free.
For free. So I mean, it's literally it's a free ticket.
You can't beat those savings.
You just go to TKI.
The exhibiting pass already.
It's just part of the thing, man. That's just how it works. I mean, to be fair though, TKI is great food. There's open bar for the first,
So is the trip
hour or so? Yeah.
Drinking a lot of alcohol and eating a lot of good food, where you offset your cost.
Oh yeah.
Oh, it's for TKI.
Eat to your heart's content.
Yeah, offer the ticket. Just drink a bunch of booze and eat a bunch of their catered food,
which is great, by the way.
Food. Yeah, no, 50/50 does a great job with that show. I mean, it's not cheap food. It's really good.
Yeah, Steve Delac knows what's up.
Oh yeah.
Shout out to Steve.
Okay, I'll see if I gotta get my tickets now. Then if I gotta go for that, right? Because I'll be there 100%. I was just gonna go and do.
This show schedule is gonna be insane. So we have SHOT Show, ends on Friday afternoon, and then TKI begins Friday evening, and then the Vegas Classic is on Saturday and Sunday. So
okay, so
nonstop.
Just as a point of reference, so TKI is the Tactical Knife Invitational, which is going to be happening at Bally's this year. Usually it's Caesars, and that's like a somewhat more exclusive knife show where it's only invited makers, and there is a reasonably hefty entrance fee. I think this year it's $250, but you do get dinner, you get drinks, and you get a box set, which is usually something pretty special. I think in the past years it's been pretty epic. I know one year it was Sci-Pop.
You buy that separately.
Yeah, you
buy it separately, but it's like a discounted rate, so it's like very expensive.
Yeah, and exactly. So whatever's in that box is usually like half off of what it really should be. If you're paying like $100 for the box set, there's probably like $800 in goods in there. But TKI is definitely a Vegas style event. Definitely dress up. If you're in street clothes, you're looking strange. You're standing out.
You definitely want to bring your 3-piece.
Yeah, like it's the big guns. It's for sure. Anybody who's showing at that show has proved to the community or to somebody that they're there for a reason. I know I'm really excited. I've seen some posts from Alan Leischwitz, and he is bringing the heat this year. I am super excited. He's building some really awesome automatics.
Yeah, there's only 30 or so makers that are invited to come, and it's kind of like arguably the who's who, the best in the industry that exhibit there. So
yeah,
it's worth it to buy a ticket for sure.
I'll see. I'll give him a call see if I can even just look at a ticket.
Never will you see better knives under one roof. That's for sure.
One roof.
Roof.
Well, we'll have a bunch of stories.
You say Mater, I say Mater.
We'll be doing a pre-show episode because I'll be working like a madman 10 days before the show.
You'll have to run around the shop and simultaneously record while I...
Yeah, like I'm running around the shop recording, but I'm just doing cleanup because Robert Carter just left the other day, like yesterday, the day before. I'm just cleaning up from then, but I'll be actually making noise and doing stuff on that pre-episode. And we'll be having the post-episode talking about the show because last time the GX was 5 days and I didn't sleep. I slept for 5 days in those 5 days. This time it's 7 days. So we'll see what kind of hectic, whatever nonsense we get into at the show this year. This coming year
should be pretty wild.
Oh my god!
I'm gonna pour some mezcal. All right, so
you have a time.
I'm glad you kept it.
So Jeremiah, let's get back to talking more about PBK. We never really talked about how you actually decided to go full time into PBK yourself. Talk about how your brother started this company and how you kind of became part of it and where you were beforehand, but what made you make the leap from your past job into doing PBK? Because it's pretty labor intensive. You spend half your life, half your year in Massachusetts, half your year in Vegas, and you travel a shit ton between places. That's a pretty hard way to live, traveling back and forth all year.
Yeah, that's a good question. All right, so pretty much from the beginning of PBK to now, I've always sort of been 1 foot in and 1 foot out of the business. From the early days, I was always sort of helping out or getting in the way as a kid. I remember, I couldn't even remember the date, but I was much younger, sitting in the garage, assembling Bally songs we got from the Philippines and setting pins and grinding them and polishing them and putting edges on the blades. So I've always sort of had a part in the business, as like maybe you could call it like a summer job or like a winter job sometimes. I used to sit around and put scale release Daltons together that would come in kits. I would put the springs in, wind the coils, and assemble the knife. So I've always sort of had a part to do with the business. In 2000, like I said, the end of 2009, I was actually living in California at the time, sort of pursuing a different course, and Josh called me. We've sort of on and off kept in contact during that period. I guess Josh and I's relationship has always been more business than family anyway. But like I said, I think that's because, I don't know, we've always worked well together in a business situation. So he just gave me a call and he's like, hey, what's going on? And, there were some extenuating circumstances back home. And I was kind of like, oh, like, I guess that's what time it is. And it just so happened at that point, he was sort of going through a divorce. I was like, oh, that sucks. And he's like, I really, like, I need that needs to happen. I'm like, oh, okay. So he asked me to come back and give him some help because the business was suffering because of it. So I packed up my bags in California and I went back to Massachusetts. And that was sort of, just diving in deep into the very deep end and just rolling with it and getting to know the system, getting to know the email, getting to know stuff I hadn't done in the past. Like I said, I've always had something to do with the business, but it's been more the physical aspect and less of the coordination and the customer service, the phone calls, the ordering, everything that we do to make PVK run. So that was sort of actually, I think that summer was the first time I spoke to Microtech and did a phone order. I did a Benchmade order, which was like at the time super exciting for me because actually I think I was ordering. We were still able to get like 42s back then, and we were still able to get Microtech Select Fires, which was like a personal favorite of mine. So 2010 was really that was the full time, time to step up and go full time brother business. And it's pretty much been like that ever since. In the last year or two, I have moved less hands-on directly with Vegas. And like this year's been nuts. I've been traveling all over the place and going to the shows and trying to really focus on advertising for the business. Because once we got the shop up and running, with employees and such, I didn't need to have such a like death grip on Las Vegas as I had in the past to make sure it was working. So this year's been great because we got shirts. I was able to sponsor the Knife Nuts and meet Levon and those guys. I was able to work on collaborations and do all these new projects that we've been thinking about doing but just haven't had the time. So really, in this case, having employees has allowed me personally to expand and get out there and spread the good word of PVK and work with people I've been dying to work with for a long time in the industry.
Now, do you want to talk about your personal brand known as Impera?
Yeah, sure. So at some point, I don't know if we all do or certainly I did, but you spend so much dang time with knife makers and machinists and dealers and collectors, you sort of get to thinking, and I've always sort of been a knuck guy, and I've always been into knucks. I've always definitely, John Gray's Keeper has always been like a grail knuck. Sci-pops are awesome. So I designed my own knuck, which I thought was pretty original and pretty interesting because it's something that I hadn't seen before. It was a two-piece knuck held together with neodymium rare earth magnets, and that was Impera, and that was sort of my foray into managing another thing all at once, like another Instagram account, another business on top of my other business, on top of whatever. Gone very strangely. It sort of was really hot at first, and then it died out. Then I didn't pay attention to it, and then it was super hot. And actually, it's been cool. I've gotten a lot of really good responses. I know you, Nick, we rode down to Blade Show. What year was that? 2 years ago?
2 years ago.
And you'd, I guess, never seen it or something. And I had it in the car with me, and you seemed to like it. And then, so since then, we've been talking about doing a collaboration, which is pretty cool.
In a bland market of knucks or just an item with a hole in it, he did something cool and different. Essentially, to kind of explain it, he has two halves, and each half has magnets pressed on the inside, so it's stuck together as one item, and you have one knuck in one hand. Or you'd split them apart very effortlessly, and you have two knucks for dual wielding. But besides that, it's also a really cool fidget toy. It's very loud and clicky because there's four magnets, so you kind of slide them and disconnect halfway, and they pretty much split apart. It's very noisy, it's very clicky. But guys that like clicking pens, it's like that times 20. It has a high fidget factor to it.
Yeah, it's definitely like once you start playing with it and get it, you just kind of you sit there and you kind of click it back and forth.
Yeah, ever since I got mine, I've not put it down really. Kind of.
You have one? Bullshit. I don't have one.
Just got one. Just got mine delivered the other day in person, hand delivered.
So I brought 2 down to New York. I gave Elijah his, and I totally forgot to bring mine when we came down to see you and Rob. So I have yours on my desk, but then I thought we would see you again before I left. I'll have to mail it. I'm sorry.
I'm enjoying mine thoroughly.
But yeah, so it's worked. The Ampera thing is a developing conundrum, but now we're into a single finger design, which will be really interesting. I think that'll be really cool because it's like the perfect size to fit into like a watch pocket.
Yeah, I've never wanted to make a Nuck, but a lot of guys message me, "Oh, you're gonna make like swag items and photogenic items," and I'm like, "What the hell does that mean, photogenic items?" And that's when I kind of realized, like, I always
thought those curios that you can just fit in your pocket and fiddle with.
I always thought the Nucks, those worry coins, and all that stuff was stupid.
Non-functional pocket art.
Yeah, and then essentially I realized even Nucks is just non-functional pocket art, so they could do their hand thumb photos and stuff like that. Well, I saw Jeremiah's design, I always thought it was cool, and I reached out to him, and I was like, okay, let's do a Nuck, but I want to make one using your concept, because it's very individual, but I don't want to do a 2-finger, I want to do a single finger, so it's very small. So we have 2 ideas for one. One, it's going to be the same concept as his, half and half split, to where it splits up, and the other one's actually going to be a single finger, where it doesn't split up, but it kind of cans to the side with a little bit of a stash can inside of it. For hiding all sorts of items.
All sorts of whatever you'd want to hide in there.
For hide in a quarter-sized area.
Right.
The 2D on the single finger is complete, and on to phase 2 for the 3D. That should be get that going pretty soon here.
Yeah, I'm working with a guy right now to get that 3D rendered up because I am just terrible at that, but I really need to get better at the. I can draw worth sort of a quarter of a damn on paper, but I can't. The computer drawing is beyond me still.
Need to teach you some draft site.
Yeah.
I think we're an hour in. So is there anything else you'd like to mention about PBK before we go?
No, I think I pretty much covered all the rough bases. Yeah, no, I think that's it. If anybody out there wants to use a coupon code, it'll work a couple of times for a discount on the website. It'll be LST and then number 6, all one word, all caps, LST6. That'll work a couple of times for an undisclosed discount. If I see it go through, I will make sure to hook up that order as a thank you for listening to this awesome podcast. And I hope I spread some light on an otherwise mysterious dealer.
And I'd like to once again mention the Bladeology podcast Instagram. We're going to start posting a lot more in there. The next episode is going to be either me or Elijah. So look out for that. We're going to mention it so that way you guys could ask us personal questions that we would talk about, plus are just the generic questions. And please reach out to the Instagram to let us know who would you like us to interview and what topics you'd like us to touch on to. So Nick Chuprin out.
Elijah out.
Jeremiah out. Thanks, guys.
Where's your fucking quote?
Oh, shit. I totally forgot that.
Yeah, so did I. Crap.
I'm just a Muswell hillbilly for life.
Do you want to jump back? I'll say Nick Chuprin out, and you'll edit that in after I say Nick Chuprin out.
Yeah. How do you want to do the quote? Just be like, here's my quote for the day. I was just trying to think about what my quote was going to be again.
It was the laws of your reality don't apply to mine.
I hate our new segment.
You don't do that. It's
great.
Funny.
I'm gonna leave that all.
Not bad.
Like that. It's good.
Because
Morgan Freeman has cotton candy. Your argument is invalid.
Fucking do it.
Okay, I can't find it. So you can use the quote, "The laws of your world do not apply to mine."
Wait, did you really just Google that?
Yes.
Dude, that's some shit.
I was pretty sure that was in some movie. That's why.
No.
All right.
The transcendental object at the end of time. Every time we slip into reverie, trance, or dream, we form a relationship with it. In mental hyperspace, we encounter the long shadow.
I mean, that's great. When did you write that?
That's Terrence McKenna.
Bladeology.
Yeah, pretty much.
So you guys submitted questions on Instagram for Jeremiah because he's representing PVK in our podcast to answer and talk about, so you guys get to know the business and who Jeremiah and Josh are. You want to start with some questions, Elijah?
Yeah, we got a couple questions here for Jeremiah on the Instagram. Let's see. Waz Not Waz would like to know to tell you more about the team at PVK Vegas Shop and what superpowers do they have?
That is an excellent question, especially since we have cultivated an excellent staff based specifically on their superpowers and their abilities.
Knife Nuts Dave would like to ask you, what does a key grip do?
Oh, that's coming from a conversation Dave and I were having actually about previous work in the days before I was full-time with PVK. I lived in and out of LA for a bit, and I did some key grip work. The key grip, just essentially those are the guys helping the camera crew and assisting with specific needs on set, like especially when the camera crew's in motion on a dolly or a truck or a crane. You're there to assist with pretty much whatever they need. Sometimes that can be more liberal interpretation. But essentially that's what a key grip is, the guy in charge of telling the other grips, hey, help this guy out over here, and just managing people.
Matt Diskin asked, if Spain attacks Italy from the rear, would Greece help?
I think so. Greece is not only an important country, but thing in general. And anytime Spain and Italy have interactions, Greece is always just a great thing to have in there, have in between the two, as a mediator, to reduce friction, in negotiations. It's very important.
Okay, I don't know what you're talking about, but Matt, if John Gray wants to mount you, we'll gladly watch.
That's the spirit.